When it comes to disaster response, stability is pretty much everything. So, what happens when the guy in charge of FEMA, America's main defense against all kinds of disasters, just up and quits after only 6 months? Yeah, that raises some huge questions. We're going to unpack what went down during this really turbulent time and what it all means for an agency we all count on. So, yeah, that's the big question we're diving into here. Why did he quit? Was it politics? Was it a massive leadership fail? Or is there something else going on under the surface? Let's break down the chain of events that led to this really high-stakes departure. All right, so let's get right into it. The news breaks, and look, this wasn't some quiet, planned retirement. Nope, this was a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire emergency management community. So the guy at the top, David Richardson, he's gone. And we're talking just 6 months. That's practically nothing for a job this important, especially when it covers a whole hurricane season. The big thing to get here is the timing. This was sudden, it was messy, and it happened right in the thick of it. Okay, so to really get why he left, you gotta understand how he got the job in the first place. See, Richardson wasn't some hand-picked successor with a long-term plan. He was basically an emergency fill-in thrown right into the deep end. And when you look at the situation he walked into, man, you can just feel the pressure cooker heating up. First off, his predecessor got fired, leaving this huge leadership gap. Second, hurricane season, it's just 3 weeks out. No time to get settled. And hey, on top of all that, he's already running another major government office. So this wasn't just taking on a new job. It was stepping into a full-blown crisis from the moment he walked in the door. This timeline, well, it really shows you just how fast everything went down. He gets the job in May. By July, just 2 months later, he's taking major heat for these deadly floods in Texas. And then poof, 4 months after that crisis, he announces he's out. It was a whirlwind, for sure. And yeah, those Texas floods, that became the story of his time at FEMA. It's what put him under the microscope and led to all the criticism that pretty much followed him right out the door. Okay, this is where things really catch fire. You've got a deadly disaster hitting Texas, and where's the head of FEMA? Reportedly on vacation with his sons. Not a good look. And then to pour gasoline on the fire, this internal review comes out saying FEMA itself wasn't even ready for the season. I mean, you can just picture the political chaos that kicked off, right? And if you want to know just how bad that storm got, listen to this. This wasn't some behind-the-scenes grumbling. This was a full-on public takedown during a congressional hearing. Representative Greg Stanton just lays into him. Doesn't just say he failed to lead, but that he seemed uninterested in even figuring out what went wrong. I mean, in Washington, D.C., that's about as brutal a public takedown as you can get. But, like with most of these big stories, there's always another side. And Richardson and his bosses at Homeland Security, well, they had a very different take on how things went. Let's hear from Richardson himself. He basically frames taking the job as an act of duty, not ambition. His whole argument is, look, a crisis was coming, they needed someone, and he was the one who raised his hand when no one else would. He even compared it to his military service in Iraq, basically painting a picture of himself as the guy who runs towards the danger, not away from it. So this really lays it all out, right? You've got these two completely different stories. The critics say he was absent during the floods. His defense? He was working remotely and got back as soon as he could. The agency was not ready. Well, Homeland Security says, A, he successfully led us through the entire 2025 hurricane season. You see how it goes? For every criticism, there's a counter-narrative. It really turns into a classic he said, they said situation, and it's tough to know exactly where the truth lies. So, with Richardson's gone, the big question is, okay, who's in charge now? Because let's be real, having a revolving door at the top of FEMA is a huge deal. Disasters don't wait for you to find a new leader. And we do have an answer, at least for now. The job is going to Karen Evans, who's the current chief of staff. She's already on the inside, which probably signals they want some stability. But, and this is a big but, she's also just an acting administrator. That means the long-term leadership question for FEMA, still totally up in the air. And all of this brings us to one last really important question. Look, this isn't just some DC drama about one guy's 6-month job. This is about the stability of the agency that we all depend on when things go wrong. So, when you have constant leadership changes like this, how on earth does a critical agency like FEMA stay ready? How do they keep everyone focused and prepared for that next big hurricane, that next wildfire, the next flood? It's a question that goes way beyond this one resignation, and honestly, it's one America really needs to figure out.